Hi, congratulations for the game today. It was quite amazing. First question, it's quite weird to see you at this rank in the summer split because you ended second in the spring split. What happened?
What happened? That's always a good question. There has been some issues that we ran into in the summer that has made us play worse. I think sometimes when you start playing worse, then it becomes like a bad cycle, and then you lose a little bit of confidence, and you don't make the decisions you would normally do, and then you sometimes take a step back, and then you get back up again and figure out like what was actually the things that you did good before. So I think it's clear to anyone watching that we have been slumping, but we are aware of that, and we're trying to like get out of it and raise our level. And it has been building up in practice. Sadly, it didn't show the weeks before, but today we had a good game, so I'm very happy about that. We at least are showing that there's some evolvement because I think at least for the fans it must be a little bit annoying to see the team you cheer for and not really show any progress. So I'm overall happy with what we showed today.
I have a really big question. There's always the debate of the Rift rivals between the LEC Summer. Do you think it has a big impact on the team, on your play, and everything?
Yeah, so for us, it actually had quite a negative impact. We traveled to America and played against the American teams on a patch that right after the patch after was a huge change, and for us going into the weeks of LEC afterwards was quite difficult because it felt like the teams that we were playing against were like one step ahead in terms of what was actually good on the patch. So it was a little bit rough for us. We didn't have a good read on the patch. It made us lose some games that we shouldn't lose. So uh, overall, I like the idea of Rift Rivals. We are in an entertainment business, and I think for the fans it was a super cool experience. But as a from a competitive standpoint, it's obviously not ideal for us. We have to travel across the world to play a tournament that actually doesn't do anything for us regards going to Worlds, winning the LEC. So yeah, that's you can see it differently. There are positives, there are negatives, but I think for for the competition of the teams, it's overall a negative experience. But hopefully, it's worth it for the fans.
So could you say that you learned pretty nothing or just a little from the NA plays?
I mean, yeah, we actually. So I felt like we didn't really learn anything from the American teams playing there. Also, as I said, it was on a completely different patch, so many of the picks that we were practicing over in North America was not something we could bring along. So it was a little bit weird, honestly. And then when you go from like a high at Rift Rivals where you feel like you play well and you actually do well and come back to Europe and suddenly you're getting beaten by teams that you felt like you should win against. It's obviously like a little harsh, but we are starting to ramp up again, and I just want to look forward now because I think you shouldn't dwell too much on the past. It's important that you learn from it, but more important that we are just moving forward now.
But tomorrow, anyway, it was a big crush on Misfits. Do you think their change to choose the LFL roster is a mistake? Because it was quite difficult for Misfits to have their former roster. But is the LFL really not as good as you could think?
Ooh, it's a tough question, but I think at the position that Misfits were in before, where they played now one and a half split with the previous roster, and it didn't really seem like they were getting anywhere. I think it's completely fair that they bring in the whole new roster and completely change things. I mean, we see the highs from the team, like when they beat they beat Fnatic, I think.
Fnatic is quite complicated team. They managed to beat a really good team as G2 and be beaten by a low team. So
Yeah,
it's quite
so
difficult to keep track of everything.
yeah, so like the good team, like with a team like full of rookies, sometimes they have like really highs, and then you see the players like, oh wow, they actually play super well, and they push themselves super hard in the game, and then sometimes they have lower games like today when they got kind of destroyed by us. So I think it's exciting. I'm always a fan of bringing in new people to the scene because we are in a scene where it's actually super hard to get to the top of or get to LEC just in and to play actually because first you have to get through like the national teams and then you have to show yourself that you're actually good enough to play in LEC and then and not a lot of people get the chance. So I think it's cool experiment they're trying and I hope they do well, but it seems a little bit too inconsistent to be able to reach playoffs.
And so now, do you feel confident for the rest of your journey in the LEC summer?
Yeah, I mean we are sadly we are not at the same spot we were last split, so I think top two is probably not a possibility. But we right now the main thing for us is to get to a level where uh, when we reach playoffs, which I'm not afraid of, I think we will get to playoffs. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But it's about the level of play that you show in playoffs because uh, in playoffs, whatever happened in the regular season doesn't really matter as long as you can perform well in playoffs. So we are just trying to get to that level and use these like last games of the regular split to secure a spot in playoffs and show good performance.
And so, last question: who do you see as the two first team for the EU LCS? LEC, sorry.
I mean, I think there's no doubt that G2 will be one of them. The other one is probably either Fnatic or Splice. Splice, yeah. So Splice kind of lost today. So it will be tough. I don't actually know. I kinda would like it to be Fnatic. Because I think it will be easier for us to beat Splice in the playoffs. So I'm kind of I just running through in my brain like what would be better for me. But yeah, I think both teams are playing well. It's just about consistency. It's regular season all about consistency, and both teams have been. At least Splice has been more consistent, but after today they lost, so it's kind of hard to say. But yeah, I think Fnatic will take it, but we'll see.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.